Hello and welcome to WA Real. I'm Bryn Edwards, your host, and today, my very first guest, I'm very pleased to introduce Paul Newsome, who describes himself as the world's most passionate swim coach. He's the head coach and founder of Swimsmooth, which is a swimming company that provides coaching and products and training products for all levels of swimmers. Outside of Swimsmooth, his own swimming accolades are nothing to be sneered at, having completed the Channel in 2011, having won the round Manhattan Swim in 2013, and has completed 4 solos. Outside of swimming, he's married to Michelle. It's coming up to 10 years, is that
correct?
It
is actually, yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed on social media recently you were saying you were punching well above your weight.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, and you also have 2 kids.
2 kids, Jackson
Paul,
and Isla. Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being my first guest. Much appreciated. So I can tell by your accent that you're not a local myself. You're from England, originally from East Yorkshire, Bridlington. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Cool. So when did you first come to Western Australia, and what was it that brought you in here?
Yeah, good question. I arrived in January 2002, and I was actually backpacking around the world when I first arrived here, and decided, I was going to go and visit Australia. It's somewhere I'd always wanted to be, and I always wanted to go. And after 6 months of traveling through Southeast Asia, I arrived here with the long hair, the big beard, the hippie thing, the whole hippie thing, with my backpack, smelling a bit musty and all that sort of stuff. And I just arrived in Perth, and I know it sounds a little bit cliche and stuff, but when I first arrived in Perth, I was staying in the backpackers in Northbridge, and I walked up to Kings Park, and I just overlooked the city and just saw all these cycle pathways. That was my first recollection or memory of Perth, was all these cycle pathways. I thought, where do they all go? It looks exciting. Everyone's riding bikes. Everyone looks fit and healthy. Yeah. The sunshine was out. It was January sort of thing, So it was all quite amazing to be here. And I was only supposed to be here for a couple of weeks, and then we're going to move on to up north, so like Broome, and then across to the East Coast and go down the East Coast, and then over to New Zealand. Then I was supposed to go on to North America and then South America. I've still got the tickets in my backpack.
Oh, excellent.
Which have long since expired. Yeah, I've still got the backpack, long since expired now, 15 years ago. And I just ended up staying here. I didn't leave Perth. It was just fantastic. And I got introduced to the community very quickly, which was interesting because I'd spent 6 months traveling through Southeast Asia, and I was very much a tourist, never really integrating, if you like, within the community. And yet all of a sudden somebody put me in touch with somebody else who then knew somebody else, and then I was joining a triathlon club, and the triathlon club, the coach was about to leave and they were looking for somebody else, and I just finished sports and exercise science back over in the UK, and I had a big passion for coaching. And I thought, this is fantastic, I'm going to apply for this job. So to apply for the job, I had to fly over to New Zealand, go and get a visa to come back, a 1-year working visa. I stayed here for a year, loved it so much, they employed me for another 3 years on a sponsorship visa. And, c'est la vie. Met Michelle during that period. And, and now I'm
Did you go for the long hair and the mustache?
Well, by that point, I'd actually chopped it off a little bit at least. A little bit more clean shaven by that point as well. But, over the years, I think in 2010, I became a bona fide Australian citizen.
Likewise.
Which is a great thing. It felt like a real achievement to get to that point. And, I love it. Now I've got 2 kids, Jackson, who's 8, and Isla, who's 5. And they, obviously this is their home for them and stuff, but just having such a great area to bring up kids and stuff. Everyone talks about how Perth is fantastic for families and, shh, don't tell the secret, don't let too many people know about it type of thing. But it is a fantastic place to be, and, wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, it's certainly why I came here to be a parent.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, And, we're lucky. We get to travel, we get to go back to England, which is where my family still lives. My dad's in York and my mum's in North Wales, and Michelle's family are all from Canada. So we got married in Montreal nearly, like you say, nearly 10 years ago, amazingly. And, we got married in Montreal. Her family now live in Ontario. So, it's a little bit like United Nations. And it's funny actually, because my business partner, Adam, in Swimsmooth, he often calls up, and he's the godparent to both my kids, and he often calls up, and the kids will come and say, "Hi, Uncle Adam," on Skype, and then they'll disappear, and he'll say to me, "Gee, they really sound Australian, don't they?" I was like, "Yeah, because they are Australian. They were born here. That's right. They are Australian." So I've got a funny accent, but they are very much Australians. Yeah,
super stuff. So obviously, swimming is a big part of your life.
Yes.
Just talk me through your relationship with swimming in terms of when you started and how your relationships sort of changed over the years.
Absolutely. I remember I was probably about 7 years of age, and there were some swimming lessons on at the local swimming pool in Bridlington in East Yorkshire on the coast there. And my mum said, I want you to go and do these swimming lessons. And I remember the first one, I ended up vomiting in the pool. I absolutely hated it, you know. And
right.
somehow she managed
drinking it.
Yeah, just swallowing the water and not being very good. And, you know, as a lot of English kids and stuff don't really have that much exposure to swimming, at least not back in those days. Now it's a completely different story, of course. Britain's doing great with swimming. But, you know, that first session, she somehow managed to get me back, and my mum's like my number one supporter. She actually works for me now, so we call her Mother Smooth. So she runs a warehouse up in North Wales where we ship off all our DVDs and books and training products and stuff like that. And she very much runs the show up there. So that sort of support right from the early days from my mum, taking me out to the training sessions and then clubs and stuff. You know, I started off with Bridlington Swimming Club, and by the time I was about 11 or 12, I was starting to take it a little bit more seriously and wanted to get a little bit better. I heard that there was a swimming coach, a new swimming coach had been put in place in Hull, which is about 30 miles away or 45 Ks or something like that, down the road. Yeah. And so my mum would take me 3 or 4 times a week in the evening. So she would finish a full day at work, jump in the car, no food or anything like that. I'd been looked after by my grandparents. They would put me in the, give me some food. And we'd drive down the coast and would, you know, so it's an hour drive thereabouts in traffic and stuff. And she would just sit there and just watch me for 2 hours whilst the coach took me through the session and then drive back. And that was her evening, 3 or 4 nights a week. So that level of commitment was just incredible. And I'll never, ever be able to sort of repay her for that because that is where the passion came from, is just from my mum's support and putting me through that. And, you know, and I think what also probably sort of sparked my interest at that point was this coach in Bridlington Swimming Club was great. It was a great introduction to swimming for me, but it's very much an amateur swimming club. Hull Olympic, who I went to swim with, had they just introduced a new coach, and he was on a salary. And I heard everyone was talking about how much his salary was.
Oh right.
And we're talking about
how much it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we were talking about the early 90s here, 1990, and this guy had been given a salary of £24,000 as a swimming coach. That's tight. And that was huge. You know, that was massive. And it was like, it might be possible to make a living from doing something that I'm already enjoying doing. Really? So that was like the seed that was planted. It was like saying, okay, well, you know, not everybody earns money from coaching. Some people do it for voluntary purposes, and that's very commendable as well, sort of thing. But if I was that passionate about it and wanted to follow that pursuit, it would be possible. It could be possible to make a living from it and do well. And this guy was hugely passionate. Unfortunately, he passed away just about 18 months ago, which is a bit of a shock. Because he wasn't that old, but he was super professional in what he did. You know, he knew all the science behind what he was doing, and even though I was definitely not one of his best swimmers by any stretch of the imagination. You know, I definitely soaked up all the passion that he put through it. And there've been other coaches who've really assisted and helped me along the way. When I went to, I decided that I was going to follow the coaching pathway and go and do sports and exercise science at Bath University. And I had a couple of coaches there, Richard Hobson, and my very close coach, who was a guy called Chris Jones, who just showed so much passion and energy to what they're doing. And Chris was very, very much into the science side of things. And I was doing sports and exercise science. But the thing that frustrated me a little bit about the training course itself, or the degree course, I should say, was that it wasn't very applied. Right. We do all this science and stuff, and we write all these articles and cross all these T's and dot all these I's and stuff. But we never actually ventured out into the real world and moved and helped athletes improve. And that's really why I went to university. It was a bit of a selfish thing. I had this idea that at some point I'll get into the coaching, but at that point I was very much into my own triathlon pursuits, and I was on the Great Britain triathlon team, and things were going really well. So it was very much a selfish thing initially. It was, how do I make myself better using sports science? But we never applied any of it. You know, and
so it's pretty abstract.
Yeah, well, very much research based. You know, you have sports scientists who, some of them live very much in the theoretical world, but then don't transition too well into the applied world. And then you have brilliant applied sports scientists who really do embrace what I believe, at least, it is to do sports science and to be passionate about that type of thing. So, we went, I did the 4-year course. My 3rd year was a placement with British Triathlon as their talent identification officer. Right. So that was quite a cool experience, because for a year I was let loose. You know, I had a very small salary that I was on during that period, and I was let loose, and I had to just go around the southwest of England, so Cornwall, Devon, Bath, Avon and Somerset, that type of area, and try and identify some talented juniors who we could maybe bring to the ranks. And somebody said, you've got to get down to Blandford Durham down in Dorset. You've got to go down there. There's a young kid. He's a really good swimmer. He's showing a bit of interest about riding a bike. He's not so great with running, but we want to go and pick him up. Yeah. So I went down there, met this guy. His name is Harry. And Harry I would have been 19 at that point, 19, 20. He would have been 15. And he was very rough around the edges sort of thing, you know, hugely sort of loads of energy, a little bit outspoken, it's fair to say. And I ended up picking up and started coaching him. And, you know, thinking about where things have sort of come from with what I do, one of the big things that I've always believed in is about the individuality of swim coaching. So historically, going back to that whole theoretical versus applied thing, theoretically, a lot of people believe that there is only one set model for the way somebody should swim. And that set model typically is something like Ian Thorpe, a brilliant swimmer, hugely tall guy, broad shoulders, long arms, big hands, hugely big feet, of course, sort of thing. You know, and almost, dare I say it, like, you know, a bit of a freak of nature. We're not all built, we're not all blessed with that. And, you know, you're looking at me here, Bryn, I'm not the tallest guy in the world, sort of thing. But I've done pretty well in swimming, but I think, and triathlon and stuff. And I think, certainly not to Thorpe's levels by any stretch of the imagination, but
but he only covered a couple of lengths in a
that's right. But pretty quick. That's right. But pretty quickly, you know, he covered those laps pretty quickly. But anyway, I guess the point that I'm trying to say is that, you know, I've always had this belief that swimming needs to be an individual pursuit, you know, in terms of, not in terms of like a solo swim, but in terms of making sure that you've found the right stroke for you and that your coach embraces that as opposed to trying to fundamentally change it. And I got my first big lesson in coaching when I started coaching Harry. You know, I was 19 years of age, still in university, all these ideas buzzing around in my head, lots of influence from, you know, the likes of Thorpe and Grant Hackett and those sort of things. And I saw this guy and he was really rough around the edges, and I thought, he's doing it all wrong. And still to this day, people say, he's doing it all wrong. He'd be so much better if he smoothed out his stroke, and he's got this hugely high turnover and straight arm recovery. And so I tried to change him. I did the wrong thing by him initially. I tried to change him. I tried to make him look like Ian Thorpe. And it didn't work. He was getting slower. And, you know, there's a transition period. There's always a transition period where if you try to... if you try something new, it's going to take a bit of time to embrace and come on board. But it just wasn't working. So I thought, there's something wrong with this. So then I went back and thought, well, how about if we just go back to what he was doing well and just try and embrace what he's doing well?
Embrace who he is.
Embrace who he is and how he's built and all these sort of things. Exactly right. Exactly. So, you know, that was very much I didn't know it at that point, but it was very much the birth of this model that we've got, which is called swim types, where we've identified 6 different types of swimmer based essentially on what's holding him back. Now, Harry is very much what we now know as a quintessential swinger.
Yes.
Now, swingers don't look particularly pretty in the pool. If you've watched recently, if anybody's listening and watched the recent World Championships in Hungary, there's a guy currently on the circuit called Gregorio Pallatrini. Yeah. And Gregorio Pallatrini is the Olympic champion for men's 1500 freestyle in the pool, and also now the world champion.
Yeah.
So anyway, during this particular event, you've got the British commentary team, who includes a guy called Mark Foster. Now, Mark Foster previously held the world record for 50 metres butterfly and was a previous training partner of mine, or rather, I was a previous training partner of his. Yeah. And so anyway, the commentary team's going. It's Mark Foster and one of my favourite swimmers, Rebecca Adlington, double Olympic gold medalist, and they're chit-chatting away. And Mark's saying, look at this guy, Gregorio Pallatrini. He's taking 390 strokes more than the guy who's right up on his shoulder. You know, he's not swimming anywhere near as efficiently. He can't be doing, because he looks like he's just turning his arms over. He's never going to survive. Yeah. And I'm thinking, hang on, this guy's already won the Olympic Games. Yeah. Something that he's doing must be right. You know, it must be right. Yeah. So very much my belief is that, you know, swimmers like that are succeeding because of their stroke, not despite it. Yeah. That they've found and they've been embraced by their coaches and helped them with that.
Have you gone through anything similar with your own swimming?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, as a young kid, I would have been taught to swim with a really long stroke and this almost catch-up style with a strong leg kick. And as I mentioned there, you know, I'm 5'10". You know, when I was racing triathlon, I would have been down in the low 60 kilos. I'm about low 70s now. So I'm not a big, powerful unit or anything like that. And yeah, I did okay as a swimmer, but it wasn't until I sort of started to see these trends and thinking, oh, maybe I can adapt and modify a little bit. You know, we've got a very famous swimmer here in Perth who's one of my mentors, Shelley Taylor-Smith, 7-time world marathon swimming champion. And when we filmed Shelley in 2010 for our coaching courses and stuff, I'll never forget her saying, she says, why do you want to film my stroke? It's not very good. I said, what do you mean it's not very good? It must be pretty good if you've won 7 world marathon championships and won this Manhattan swim 5 times in a row and held the world record for it. Oh, but everyone's always said it's not very good. And I haven't got a very good kick. Don't look at my kick. And as it happens, when we're filming her kick is just unbelievably good. It's like what we call a 2-beat leg kick.
Yeah.
It flows perfectly with the stroke. It's perfectly balanced and great for open water swimming for the sort of distances that she was doing. And, you know, rather than her coach in the old days trying to change her, he just embraced it. But a lot of people try to change because we have this sort of worldview that everybody needs to look the same. And we can all appreciate the aesthetics of somebody like Ian Thorpe. And don't get me wrong, I love Ian Thorpe. He's fantastic, a huge hero of mine. But not everyone's built to swim like that. And, you know, going back to the World Championships, Mark Foster's saying, he's taking 390 more strokes. And he says, the other guy is more efficient. And then he says, he's more efficient, but he's working harder. How does that work? Exactly right, you know. So it sort of, I think one of the challenges we've had, I've been running Swimsmooth now for 13 years, and we've certainly in the initial years and stuff, we fought very much an uphill battle because nobody believed in this idea of swim types. Nobody believed in challenging the convention that you shouldn't necessarily encourage everybody to swim with the longest possible stroke that they could. And it was a bit of an uphill battle, but just in the last couple of years, the tide has been turning and people are starting to realise that, hey, if Gregorio Pallatrini is the Olympic champion and world champion in the 1500 freestyle, and this young kid on the block, Adam Peaty from the UK, brilliant breaststroker, amazing. The commentary team in the Olympics were also saying about him, his stroke's too short, his stroke rate's too quick, he's headbutting the water up and down, he looks awful.
But he's smashing world
records. And so come Tokyo in 2020, everybody's going to be embracing Adam Peaty's stroke. In fact, with the kids that I work with, you know, we call it the Adam Peaty headbutt. He headbutts the water. His stroke rate is a lot quicker than anybody else. He's got the shortest stroke of everybody in the Olympic final, but he's the fastest guy. Yeah. So by using models like that, and I'm not saying that, you know, the way he swims or the way Gregorio Pallatrini swims is the way that Ian Thorpe should have swum, far from it. But sort of trying to give credit where credit's due to the people who are sort of thinking a little bit outside of the box. And
I wonder how many other sports there are where, you know, like let's take golf, tennis, things like that, where there's the standard smooth swing of like Tiger Woods or someone like that, and everyone's trying to emulate that, but not necessarily going with what they've got.
Absolutely, I'm so sort of monosyllabic when it comes to sports, in the sense that I'm so focused on swimming. I don't know too much about the other sports. In fact, if I ever picked up a golf club, watch out. You know, it could be a dangerous affair. But I mean, quite possibly. You know, one of the things that we've been able to do with our swim type system. I first started to really put pen to paper in 2008.
I was going to ask you, what was the sort of catalyst for you to start to think there's something here now?
I think the original catalyst was working with Harry and just sort of thinking, well, it's not what I'm trying to do with him is not working. Stuff that I do with others.
Times are going down.
Yeah, exactly right. It's times are getting slower, not quicker. So that was the first thing. But I didn't really think too much about it. I just thought, well, I'm coaching it. I'm one-to-one with this guy and I'm coaching him as an individual. But when I set up Swimsmooth in 2004, I was preaching this whole idea that, you know, you've got to look at the stroke, and you basically got to coach the swimmer, not coach the stroke, is my belief. That's our little saying, basically, coach the, you know, and
by coaching, message for life in that.
Oh, it is, yeah, absolutely. You know, coaching, looking at the swimmer and saying, you know, what is it that this person needs, irrespective of what some of the theory might say.
Yes.
And so that was 2004, and I was on these chat forums and trying to put this advice across to people, and people were starting to say to me, hey, can I become a Swimsmooth coach? Can I follow what you're doing? And we had a DVD out, you know, and showing the technique and drills and stuff that you can do to improve. But I always struggled with the idea of how, if the rest of the world's thinking in black and white, the stroke is either like this or it's like that. There's nothing in between.
Yes.
How do I actually systemize the grey space in between to sort of recognize the difference in people?
Because you gotta drill that down and articulate it in order to go against the huge grain
of, you know,
standard like S shape and the keyhole and all of that sort of stuff, which
all of that sort of stuff, you know. And we're not reinventing the stroke. And, you know, swim types, we often get feedback from people, you know, since we released it back in 2010 saying, I totally recognise that. That's how I sort of coach. And we say, yeah, that's great, that's fantastic. But the challenge was to actually make it into a system whereby I could get, you know, 10, 12, 15 coaches over from the eastern states or from the US. We've got 40 coaches worldwide now.
Yeah.
And they come up and they train up with me. And I have to have like some sort of system to sort of say, look, if so-and-so is swimming like this, what is the pathway for them to improve? Yeah. And if you have somebody else here who's completely different, what is the pathway for them to improve? So that was the birth, if you like, of swim types in 2010.
What was the catalyst for that?
I think
you said Harry, but
Harry.
Must have been a point where
there was
you must have thought. I mean, what were you doing before you started Swimsmooth in earnest? So you must be doing something and thought, I'm just not happy with this, or I'm not.
Absolutely. I think 2004, the sort of friction that I was feeling, I guess, was that
It's almost like internal friction.
Oh, yeah, totally. And I still live with that friction every day of my life, sort of thing, you know, how can I make it better? How can we make the world swim better? Type of thing. And, you know, 2004 was when I released it. And I still remember to this day, my mum and stepdad were visiting from the UK. And we went for a coffee down in Rockingham. Still remember exactly where we sat. And they said, so, you know, how's the swim coaching going for you? And I said, well, I'm getting paid $125 a week. I'm working full time. This is up at Challenge Stadium. And, you know, no disrespect to the club and stuff. It gave me a foot into what I was doing. And, you know, without that sort of exposure, you know, Perth's a fantastic place to have exposure to a huge number of swimmers who aren't necessarily racing.
And swimming pools.
And swimming pools, exactly right. 25, 50-metre pools, public 50-metre pools and stuff. You know,
everywhere.
It was like, you know, it was like nirvana for me, sort of walking into this brilliant place and having that and seeing this massive number of people. And when in 2004 my parents came over, they said, you know, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep doing this? I said, well, I've had this idea. I want to put this thing forward, but it's going to cost a bit of money. And I said, okay. And you could sort of see them leaning in a little bit. And I said, I've had this idea that I want to create a DVD to show people how to utilize the drills which I've been developing over the last 3 or 4 years here in Perth and actually be able to help them improve their efficiency. Now, it didn't seem like such a big, grandiose thing at the time because essentially all I was trying to do was actually provide a video of, let's say, a collection of 30 different drills to actually be able to share with the people in the club to sort of say, hey, you know that funny drill I keep talking about, broken arrow or what have you, or this sculling drill underneath the water? Sit down for 30 minutes before you come for a swim and just watch these drills. You'll know how to do it a little bit better.
And you'll understand why.
You'll understand why, most important. And that was really what it was about. It was about educating people. As you know, I remember as a kid the coach would often say to us, okay, choice drill. And all of us would look blankly at each other going, we only know one drill, and that was catch up. So we all just did catch up. We didn't know why we were doing catch up. And as it turns out, catch up's not a very good drill for the efficiency of your stroke anyway. But that's all we knew. So, you know, I said to my parents, I said, I want to set up this DVD. And funnily enough, I had this idea that I came up with 3 different names. It was Swimsmooth, as we know it now, Swim Clean, and Swim Fresh. And it was all, the other two sound really naff. Yeah, I think I picked the winner. The other two sound naff. But the idea behind that was I'd seen this laundry detergent. It's called Radiant over here in Australia. I had this pack and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if the whole idea was that I was going to clean up somebody's stroke and the DVD was going to help you clean up your stroke. Okay. So there's like 3 different stages, like the wash and clean and polish and all that stuff, polish and wax and stuff. And anyway, so I said to my parents, like, I want to do this. It's going to cost me, I've found a company here in Perth who do DVDs and videos and stuff. And it's going to cost me $4,000. And they said, right, we'll spot you that money. And I was like, really? That's fantastic. Awesome. You know, because I certainly wasn't earning $4,000 on my coaching. So they spotted me and I hired this company. And it's funny because some of the projects that we've done since, some of the bigger projects have taken literally years to develop. You know, we've got an online coaching system now called the Swimsmooth Guru, which is basically the new age version of this DVD, but it sort of guides you and coaches you. You know, we've been working on developing that for 4.5 years, whereas the DVDs, I was able to film it all, edit it all, put it all together within about 3 months and have a saleable product, which smash it out, you know, and get it out there and stuff. And, you know, they talk about these like lean startups and all that. That was very much the leanest of all startups, really. And We launched that in December of 2014. My visa in Perth was expiring in May 2015, so 5 or 6 months later. So me and Michelle, we just hooked up at that point, and I said, right, let's go traveling around the world. Then I'll show you England. You can show me Canada, and we'll try and make our way around the world selling these DVDs and getting the word out about what I'm trying to do with Swimsmooth. So we landed in the UK, and my mum and stepdad, again, very, very grateful to them. They bought me a Fiat. I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show Max and Paddy.
Yes.
So they drove around this 1990 Fiat Ducato camper van, and they sourced exactly the same camper van for us. It was like a bit run down and stuff. We put all these big Swimsmooth stickers all over it. No one had ever heard of Swimsmooth at that point, and we drove around following the Tour de France. I figured that if I put swimsmooth.com on the roof, we might get a helicopter fly over the top and be able to pick it up.
Yes.
So we had this
early flair for marketing.
Absolutely. So we had a little bit of fun, and the first few clinics that we put on, we didn't really. We got 2 or 3 people along to them, and the pool fees were more than it was to get people through. But I remember running our first full clinic. I think it was our second or third one. Word had got out, and we'd hooked up with the Manchester Triathlon Club, and we got up there to Salford and run this course, and it was amazing, because it was like everything right there on that day. It was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to come in,
taste it and feel it.
Taste it and feel it. I didn't have all the technology, didn't have the system in place. We had some PowerPoints and slides of what you should be thinking about, and I had the DVD there to sell to people if they wanted to buy it. But I could sort of really think, okay, here I have, I've got 12 people in front of me. I'm going to film each one of them. I'm going to analyze their strokes. We're going to get back in the water. We're going to correct their swimming stroke. And then, and then down the line, they're going to maybe come back and do another session, or they're going to get in with their club and take it forwards from there. So, it sounds a little bit cliche and stuff, but we came out of that particular, clinic, got into the Fiat Ducato, the Max and Paddy van, and just totally buzzing. Like, we were like, woohoo! This is it. It's fantastic. And it was a big change in heart, because prior to that, it felt really hard, not really selling out or selling the clinics and stuff. And we had, I think, I remember turning up to the Windsor Triathlon in 2015, and I had literally a suitcase full of these DVDs.
Yeah.
And somebody mentioned something in one of the triathlon magazines, and we got there, and no sooner did we open up the door, this guy came running up to us. Oh, you're the Swimsmooth guys. I heard about you in this magazine. Have you got a DVD? Yeah. So I handed him over a DVD, handed over £30 or whatever it was. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be a millionaire by the end of the day. But that was the only DVD that we ended up selling for about 4 months. It's just one guy happened to see this advertorial or whatever in the triathlon magazine, and and then just thinking about, taking it forwards a little bit. You asked about, what was the seed, if you like, for the swim types. Well, in 2008, I was back over here. I was working for Bill Kirby at Kirby Swim, and I had a great rapport with Bill. Bill actually was in our first DVD, so he was demonstrating, some of the drills and stuff like that. And by that point, I'd done 4 or 5 years of video analysis with lots and lots and lots of swimmers.
Yes.
And I'd started to see these patterns in the way people were swimming. I couldn't quite put a finger on it. I certainly hadn't named it or anything like that. But I just thought, I seem to be doing... Here's a guy who looks like that guy that I had 3 weeks ago, who swims like this, who's responding well to that. There must be something in this.
Yes. And
then I started to sort of almost pick up a little bit on the personality of the different swimmers as well. And when we first said to the coaches in 2010, we got the system, we've refined it over the last 2 years. It's called Swim Types, and we strongly believe that there's a link to the way people swim and their personality and their learning style as well. Yes. And I think everyone could understand and get the concept of, okay, there might be different styles of stroke, but come on, it's a little bit left field to sort of think that it might be a link with the personality.
Because you linked it down to the sort of trunks they'd wear and the way they get into the pool as well.
All that sort of stuff. The way they jump into the pool, how they respond and react to me, what I need to, how I need to sort of cater my coaching style to them. A lot of people think that if, as a coach, it's your way or the highway, but I very much believe I can cater my coaching style.
Well, it's going back to getting the swimmer to swim as opposed to smashing the message out.
That's exactly right, you know. So, so when we put it out, it was a little bit left field and people weren't so sure on it. But since that point, I mean, we're talking 7 years ago now, we've had psychologists, sociologists, come on the coaching courses as psychologists and sociologists and want to actually study it from a personality perspective, irrespective of the coaching. You know, and a lot of people say, well, you know, you can't validate this model and stuff. And the reality, sort of scientifically, exactly right.
But anecdotally, look.
Totally. And if you think about most scientific studies, you know, certainly in sports science would involve 20 or 30 students sort of thing, you know, and they look at it and you do statistics to sort of prove that. We've literally seen well over 10,000 swimmers now swimming the way and looking at these trends. And, you know, it's just like any sort of scientific model. It's there to be experimented with. It's not hard, fast. You're either going to be a swinger or a smooth. You're either going to be an Arnie or a Bambino. It's not hard, fast like that. It's never intended to be, but it's a channel or a funnel, if you like, for us to work with our coaches and for us to work with our swimmers to get the absolute best out of them. And it's a great thing. Yeah, myself and Adam, my business partner, we'll be driving along. We'll be like, I bet he's an Arnie, that guy driving that big truck over there with a big four-wheel drive and hanging his elbow out the window. And somebody else might look a little bit timid and think, oh, maybe she's a Bambino or what have you. And it's a fun and very sort of, you know, we purposefully put fun illustrations to each of the swim types, and just to sort of show that, you know, we're not taking ourselves too seriously, and that this is not cut and dry. It's not a pure scientific model, but that people get a lot of value from recognizing themselves in those areas, and then us being able to then channel them forwards and show them what they need to do to improve. Yeah.
So has the growth of Swimsmooth been a gradual journey, or has there been points where you suddenly thought, right, I'm going to have to take this seriously now. It is my passion. I am into coaching, as you've you've clearly said. But is there a point where you suddenly thought, right, this is a business, kids on the horizon, houses, things like this. Totally. I've got to convert passion into a business that actually puts the bread on the table. Totally.
I think around about the same time I was coming up with the swim types thing. I'd actually met my business partner Adam online. It sounds like a very romantic meeting sort of thing. We actually met on a chat forum, and a triathlon chat forum it was.
Thanks for clearing that.
Yeah, no problem at all. Not a dating chat forum. And Adam is brilliant at photography, and I've got this massive interest in photography as well. I've done quite a lot of. We've since done quite a lot of wedding photography together.
Right.
And
I did not know that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we 2009. I shot 25 weddings in 2009.
Right.
And just love it. I find it quite similar to coaching. You know, being able to sort of get people the best out of people for the best photographs and stuff like that. So it's a massive passion. Anyway, I met Adam online, and I was working for Bill at that point. And I said, hey, you know, this guy had been talking about biking and run coaching, but didn't really seem that strong on the swim coaching side of things. I said, you know, what are you doing for the next 6 months? Do you fancy coming over to Perth and just sort of shadowing what I'm doing over in Perth? And, you know, for most normal people, that would be totally impossible. They'd have jobs, they'd have houses, they'd have families and stuff. But as it happened, Adam had just been made redundant, unfortunately, by Ford. So he'd been given a little bit of a payout, had a little bit of time, wasn't sure what he was going to do. So he came over and just shadowed with me over in Perth. And Swimsmooth at that point was 4 years old. And we had a website, and we were selling DVDs. And, you know, I'd already employed my mum to ship out these DVDs when they came through. But I wasn't really actively promoting it or anything like that. I wasn't doing anything big with it. And Adam, after 6 months of being here, I remember we literally shook hands at the airport. I said, you know, I think we could work really well together.
Yeah.
You know, we just click and we get on really well. And he said, yeah, I reckon we could do it as well. So he went home, came back a couple of weeks later, and then just literally over the space of a year, sat in a tiny little bedroom in South Perth and wrote the Swimsmooth website.
Right.
So the Swimsmooth website, as it currently stands now, so where are we? We're in August 2017. It's going to be up there for about the next month, and then the new version is coming out. But since 2009, that website has not changed.
Right.
We get about 2 million unique visitors a year, just because it's so full of content and useful free information.
Huge.
It is huge. It's very easy to get lost in there.
Yep.
We know that. That's why, hence the reason the new website's coming out. But Adam just put a year of his life into writing this, and he's not a web developer, he's not a coder, but he taught himself all these skills.
Yeah.
And I just saw the passion and energy that he was putting into that, taking my my ideas and actually putting them out there. And I thought, there is something more to this. There is something that we can do. And we started to get these hits, and the sales of the DVD started to drive. And then we got literally a knock on the door, or certainly an email in the inbox from British Triathlon, who I'd worked with previously, back when I was working, doing sports science. And they said, hey, we really like what you're doing. We haven't got a very good swim coaching curriculum. Yeah. Would you consider writing the swim coaching curriculum for British Triathlon? And we're like, yeah, yeah, sure, yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. So they commissioned us to write it, to doing this, and I've been listening to a couple of podcasts myself from different entrepreneurs, and one of the things that seems to bubble through all the time is this idea of generosity. In order to actually sort of get yourself out there, you've got to do something, give something to get something, and With the British Triathlon, it was a massive deal for us, but we didn't charge them for any of our material. Right. We did it all for free. So we spent a year of our working lives, creating this content for British Triathlon. But it's been unbelievably great, because with that, we've suddenly got the credibility within the UK.
Yes.
We've put our heart and souls into creating it. Coaches are using it, seeing it's working, and then it's part of the syllabus in the UK. And there's something like 3,500 coaches in the UK now who have actually gone on a British Triathlon coach's course. They've done the swim module, which is all our stuff, and they've learnt about Swimsmooth. Yeah. So it's been that was a really good vehicle. And then following on from that, 4 years later, 2014, the International Triathlon Union contacted us and said, hey, we saw the really good work that you did with British Triathlon. Yeah. Will you do it for us? So yeah, what does that involve? And they said, well, that involves you writing a curriculum that's going to be used in 119 countries around the world. Wow. And we're like, yeah, okay, so we'll do that. Yeah, well, let's do that. And it's been great because, we're very passionate about this idea that, there might well have been once upon a time a worldview that everybody needs to swim this one way. Yep. But our interest area is very much in distance freestyle swimming. It's in swimming in the open water. It's for triathlon swimming. And those environments and those disciplines are very different to swimming 50 meters flat out in a pool. Yes. Very different indeed. Yeah. And, so sort of being seen now, I guess, as in that area, in that sort of arena, if you like. We've got that niche, exactly right. Yes. And that's been quite a good thing. And people still say to us, when are you going to write butterfly, backstroke and breaststroke? When are you going to start talking about sprints and stuff like that? And that's stuff that we might do down the line, but it's not immediately pressing for us, and I think, again, this goes back a little bit to my past, thinking about what I was like as a kid. I was somebody in a squad who could work harder than anybody else. Yes. I remember doing a set of 20 times 100 meters still to this day. And my mentor at that time was a lady called Billie Jean Clark, who now lives in Sydney. And we still hook up and stuff. She was about 4 years older than me. Brilliant swimmer, held a couple of British records at the time. She just happened to be in our club. And she just exuded this aura of passion about something. She's, come on, Paul, you can do it like this. Yeah. The other coaches weren't paying too much attention to me because I wasn't a very good sprinter. Yes. I'd go to a swimming meet and I wouldn't make a finals, and yet here I was, this Trojan in training, working my arse off. Excuse me. Yeah. And just working my backside off, and not really, for some reason, wasn't translating. So I initially thought, well, maybe I'm just no good for this swimming thing. But in reflection, looking back on it, I was definitely
That's not your niche.
It's not my niche. I'm not a sprinter. I'm a distance athlete. So thinking now about the future, about my own kids and the kids that I coach and the things that we're going to be doing for the kids in the future, it's very much about recognizing that, not just recognizing these different swim types, but also recognizing in its simplest terms that if you've got a pool of 100 young kids swimming, not all of them are going to be the greatest sprinters. Yes. And if they're not going to be the greatest sprinters, because typically only sprinting is available to them, the 80 or so others who are not that great at sprinting are going to probably potentially think they're not that great. And they might potentially drop out of the sport. And swimming around about the age of 13, 14 has a hugely high dropout. Yes. Even the Brownlee brothers in the UK weren't fantastic pool swimmers, but their coach recognised, hey, maybe you'd be quite good for this new sport of triathlon. You seem to have this big engine, you can keep going. You might not be able to lift it too high, but you can keep going. So they nourished them through that, and nurtured them through that, I should say, and pushed them towards that. And, 2 Olympic gold medals, a bronze and a silver. Yeah. The best,
and carrying each other across the line.
Carrying each other across the line. It's an amazing success story, and I think a lot of that, they are hugely talented athletes, massive work engines, they'll do anything for training. But at some point, somebody has said to them, what you're doing here in this environment is not your niche.
Yep.
Something else might be better for you. So I think one of my things I believe is very much to try and educate people that's the and it just so happens that for age group athletes like ourselves, in sort of 30s, 40s, 50s, there's still a masters program out there where you can go into pools and do sprint events and stuff, but the growth area is obviously triathlon and open water swimming. These longer distance swims where just to sort of embrace swimming for life really more than anything else. So
we'll come to that in a minute. But you were saying, so now you're writing the syllabus for the international triathlon. Yes. So where does Swimsmooth go from there?
Well, where it goes from there then is to try to, a lot of these coaching platforms, for the ITU and for British Triathlon, it's a case of we need to write the content and produce the videos for you and do the training plans and the pathway and stuff. But it's still the vehicle in that, talking 2010, the technology that was available in 2010 is nowhere near as good as it is now and nowhere near as good as it will be in 3 or 4 years' time. So now, alongside the 2014-15, we started to develop this idea that, okay, we want to be able to put a lot of our content online. People are no longer using DVDs. They're streaming video. You've got Netflix and Amazon and all that sort of stuff. That's how people want to get their content. And we always believed that was a bit of friction. We've got a massive following. We're lucky to have that, very blessed to have that. We've got 120,000 people on our blog list.
Yep.
So it makes it the world's biggest swimming blog, which is great. And a lot of that's been driven from just a lot of generosity. Back in 2009, we produced an animated swimmer, Mr. Smooth. Yes. It cost us 3 times as much as what we had in the bank at that point. And that was mates' rates because it was my cousin's boyfriend who produced it for us. And it's a brilliant piece of work. And when we produced it, Adam said, right, we're going to give that away for free. And I said, what? You're joking? What? But that's helped to grow.
It's a great trend here. You're giving everything away for free.
Absolutely.
When do you get to making something?
Well, hopefully by the time I'm 50 or something like that, maybe, but just sort of putting it out there, it helps to establish your brand, establish what you're about and the really philosophies and ideas that you've got. Because, it's no good sort of just hiding behind a closed wall and saying, here's 3 sentences about what I do as a coach. Click now to pay more to find out more sort of thing. People just don't, that's not the way people operate. People need to know a little bit about what your philosophy is and what you're trying to do. And
who you are as a person.
And who you are as a person, it's very, very important. I definitely wear my heart on my sleeve and I've been pulled up from that on more than one occasion. Just in terms of actually getting, where are we going now? Well, very much our online coaching platform, the Swimsmooth Guru, allows us to reach out to people worldwide.
Scaled up.
And scaled out, exactly right. Or scaled up, exactly right. And the thing with that, we've always seen to be a lot of friction over in the US with our centre operation is in the UK. So Mother Smooth, my mum, is based up in North Wales. The mothership is up there. She's in this little office and warehouse sort of thing that we purposely built for her, and she loves it. But getting someone to buy a DVD in America from the UK and pay shipping and stuff like that has always been a bit of a friction point sort of thing. Is it going to arrive? Are these guys genuine? Is it just a bogus website? Whereas if people can actually access it instantly and see it and stream it and stuff, that helps to break down those barriers big time. So we've invested a huge amount of time in that. That's really that whole project. I said 2014. It's actually been, we started in 2013. So. Right. Talking 4.5 years of development, and we're still developing it all the time. So that's very much where we're heading with that. And we've now got since 2011, since we released Swim Types and had this model where I could actually feel comfortable coaching another coach to be able to do what I do. Yeah,
because you have the Swimsmooth coaches around the world.
That's right. Yeah, so we've got 40 coaches dotted around the world. Most of them at this point are in the UK. So we've got 14 or 15 in the UK.
You've got some random ones all over the place, though.
Oh, we have. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting because at this point in time, we're still very much reliant on people wanting to learn about Swimsmooth, having the passion to then become a Swimsmooth coach, and having the facilities like a pool which allow them to book the lane space to be able to do it and make it economically viable for them to then be able to do that. But working with those coaches is great. And when we first announced to them that we were putting out this Guru, this online coaching system, a lot of them were quite nervous about, oh my God, is that going to replace our? You've we've invested in you by becoming a Swimsmooth coach, and now you're giving it away, and you can get it for $20 a month for the premium version, or $6 or $7 a month for the standard version. You talk about this at higher quality and stuff, but the funny thing is that it really has provided this funnel or this channel, is that people get onto the Guru who might. There's a lot of people out there who feel intimidated about joining a squad, or even intimidated about approaching a coach because they haven't got a swimming background, and they're worried that, is the coach going to laugh at me? Is he going to think I'm rubbish? And these sort of things. So it's a much safer environment for them to check it out, do some drills, learn a bit about it, and we get loads of people just feeding back saying how much it's working for them.
I remember the first time when I came here 7 years ago, and I remember just turning up at asking a coach if I could join a session in Fremantle, and it took me a couple of weeks to pluck up the courage just to ask, and he just said, "Yeah, sure, get in."
Yeah,
and it was like, "How much do I pay you?" No, it's free in your pot.
Right? Wow,
so,
wow.
But it can be
intimidating, definitely. And I think with the Guru, as we call it now, it's we've got this friendly little Guru dude who pops up and guides you around the website and gives you feedback and input and allows you to track your progress. With that, it's provided this funnel to sort of say, okay, people get established with Swimsmooth and what it's all about and whether it works for them and what have you. And then through that channel, they end up finding our Swimsmooth certified coaches. So you might think, so-and-so, you might look originally and think, he's 200 kilometers away, it's too far to go for a swim session. But you get into the program, you start to like it, and suddenly that 200 kilometers is a lot closer than what you think it is.
Absolutely.
You jump in your car for 2 hours and you go and have a training session. I frequently get people flying over from New York, from California, just to come for a swimming session with me. They'll literally fly in one day and fly out the next to come and have a swim session. I mean, it's almost unheard of. Thinking back to my coach who gave me all this passion, he's on his £24,000 a year salary and stuff. Me realizing that it would be possible to earn a living from this and enjoy what I do. I turn up every day on the pool deck. I just love being there. It's great. I had one guy a couple of years ago. He must have been having a bad swim or something. This guy rests on the side of the pool. He goes, "Oh mate," it was on a Saturday afternoon. I'm going to do my very best impression of a strong Aussie accent. "Oh mate, you're working your arse off here. Why did you do that? You could be up on the mines." This is before the mining bust sort of thing. "You'll be up on the mines driving a truck for 150 grand a year. What are you doing?" And he's like, he must have caught himself and reflected on what he was saying as he was saying, because he looked around and go, beautiful blue sky, a couple of clouds in the sky there, a fantastic 50-metre swimming pool, Claremont swimming pool, Davies Road there, just an amazing facility. And I've got a smile on my face. I've finished working with somebody. It's just late on a Saturday afternoon. And he suddenly stopped. He goes, it's quite a good office though, this, isn't it? And I was like, it is quite a good office. It's a great office, So very privileged to be able to
chilly office sometimes at 5 a.m. on the pool day.
In the winter, it's been a bit of a wet winter this winter sort of thing, and it definitely makes it a little bit more challenging. But I mean, my job in that role is just to try to get people just to get into the water. Now, once they're in, they've got the steam coming off the pool. You feel super virtuous when you get back out of the water and stuff. So
you do.
Just sort of seeing that, and I learn a lot from the athletes and swimmers. Some of them I call them, "You're my athletes," and they go, "I'm not an athlete. I'm just a recreational swimmer," sort of thing. But they're all athletes. They're all following the program. They're all doing hard training sessions and stuff like that. I get a lot of inspiration from the way that they work and operate. As a junior triathlete in the UK, I felt like there was all this pressure on me to perform, and in reflection over the years, there was actually no external pressure whatsoever. It was all inside, internal pressure, thinking I've got to be so-and-so, I've got to be this, I've got to do that. And, I'd talk myself out of the training sessions. I'd sometimes stop and, sort of think, I've hurt my shoulder or something like that. I hadn't probably, I was just overdoing the whole thing and just building it into something it wasn't. And then I have my swimmers turn up to Claremont Pool every morning. Everybody completes the session. No one ever questions it. No one feels like they're racing for sheep stations. That people are very real about what they're trying to do. And that's not to say that some of my swimmers haven't achieved just amazing feats. One of our swimmers, Sue Oldham, she's 72 years of age. She's going to be she's setting off next week to swim the English Channel, which will be her third swim across the English Channel if she successfully makes it. She was the world record holder. Recently, somebody's chipped her off the block at 68 years of age. Sue's going back over there and to do it again. And We've got a lady that we refer to as Mega Megan in the squad, who started off with us, and she was swimming 2 minutes 15 per 100 meters, and really sort of not struggling in the water, but very, very sort of slow, and not really thinking that she'd go too far with it and what have you. But she swam the Rottnest swim in just over 6 hours, and got a threshold pace, as we call it, a CSS pace, down to the low 130s from 2 minutes 15, a massive improvement. And people seeing that, we try to make these stories about these swimmers, and they're all genuine stories. So saying so and so's done this is how they've done it. We're very free in sharing of that information.
Yes,
this is the process that they go through, and in the grander hope of actually helping swimmers all around the world sort of recognise themselves in Mega Megan or in Sue and or whoever that might be coaching at that time. Cool. So you ask the question, you give a lot away for free and stuff like that, but I think when you're as passionate as we are about swim coaching, and your genuine interest is to actually help people improve their swimming and just enjoy what you've always enjoyed your whole life, it's not so much, I know it sounds cliche to say, but it's not about the money. It's not about earning mega bucks to get it in and stuff like that. We've got to be realistic. I'm not in mining, I'm not in engineering and product development like that. Swimming coaching, as good as it can be, it's never going to be at that sort of level. You hear about the Andrew Forrests of the world with the big paychecks and stuff like that. We're not. I actually coach Andrew and his son, sort of thing, and a fantastic mentor for me. But we've got to be realistic in our own expectations. We're never going to be at that sort of level and stuff.
So what is the future for Swimsmooth?
Well, I could tell you, Bryn, but then I have to kill you. We have, we've got various projects that we're working on at the moment. We've just, it's a really interesting time for us at the moment. 3 weeks ago, we, in fact, not just 3 weeks ago, this things have been developing over the last couple of years, whereby we're starting to get lots of copycat coaches copying what we're doing, right? Oftentimes without our permission and stuff like that.
With your types, and you've gone against the grain, and you've done all that hard work.
That's exactly right.
I suppose it's a compliment on one level.
It is a compliment on one level, and that's
not a compliment if it's taking the bread off the table.
Well, that's right, and it's the glass half full fraternity would say exactly that. They say you've got to look at this as a compliment and what have you. But we've got to be, because we take so much care and attention and time and investment in our coaches. We want to make sure that the people who are claiming to be Swimsmooth coaches out there are genuine Swimsmooth coaches. It's not even so much about the bread on the table. We just want to know that so and so is having a session. I got a thing on Twitter a few months ago saying, I put something out saying, Swimsmooth, we do all this, train up our coaches, and somebody responded back within 5 minutes saying, well, I had a Swimsmooth session, and I've got to say it was absolutely quite rubbish. It wasn't anything that I was expecting. And I was like, oh my God, one of our coaches, what are they playing at? So I investigated it, and it turns out this coach has nothing to do with Swimsmooth whatsoever, but she told this lady she was. Oh, right. So we're starting to see a lot of that, and even just last weekend we had a guy who was literally cut and pasting our articles, putting them, so not even just inferring connection, literally cutting just and pasting, and banging it on there, and that upset me a lot. Did that because it's we have put a lot of time and effort into it. If people are going to refer to us, we would want credit where credit's due, and not just cut and pasting. And I mentioned earlier on, I put my heart on my sleeve. So against all marketing advice sort of thing, and my sister and my dad are both in that environment, they went mad at me when I did this. I whistleblowed on this guy. I said, you've copied this, you've copied that, you've copied this, put it out on Twitter, and it got a massive stir up of people's attention, because we're quite lucky, because we've done a lot for free and helped a lot of people.
And you've got that huge fan base.
That fan base, and a bit of almost say like a little bit of a halo effect about what we do, because people can see that we're doing it for the right reasons, not just to earn a buck or what have you. So I put this out there, and this guy was stripped down big time. And to the point where he was calling me up saying, I'm going to sue you for defamation, for loss of business.
You mobilised your tribe against him.
My tribe against him, and they just cut him down big time. And he was on the doorstep of one of our coaches in the UK. And I got really stressed about this, because as soon as he mentioned the word, I'm going to sue you, I was like, hang on, how do we turn around 180 degrees?
How do I get in trouble?
For you doing for ripping off my material? And I was livid, absolutely livid. So I was getting all stressed, not sleeping and stuff like that, and really having a hard time. And I freely admit the last few weeks I've been doing it pretty rough because of this. When people plagiarizing your stuff and taking what you've built and just putting it out there and profiting from that. As it happens, this same coach had been falsely claiming his coaching credentials as well.
Oh.
So because we have the connection with British Triathlon, they stepped in and said, hey, and they took it off my hands basically, and now they're dealing with that. So, that's one. Everyone said to me, everyone always said, "Oh, well, Paul, you should be really flattered that people are copying your stuff." Yeah. That's the first sign that you're starting at this tipping point. People call it a tipping point sort of thing. You're tipping over that point where suddenly you've gone from being this sort of bit of a cult thing to getting a little bit more sort of mainstream.
The cult is now becoming the mainstream.
Yeah, the mainstream and stuff like that. And it's a nice feeling to have that, but. I think coaching and the swimming community. Absolutely. And the swimming community.
It's your IP.
Yeah, exactly right. We're not talking Coca-Cola ripping off Pepsi sort of thing here. Yeah. We're talking about coaches who, when I sign up as a coach, one of the reasons I want to be a coach, we sign an ethical code of conduct. And that, it sort of wards off against stuff like this. There's almost an unwritten rule that you wouldn't do that. And one of my coaches in triathlon, a guy called Steve True, did a marvellous thing on my behalf. He contacted me and said, "Is this really true about all this plagiarism stuff?" And I said, "Yeah, it's just on Facebook." And he said, "Well, it just seems crazy. What can I do?" And I said, "Well, I don't know if there's a lot you can do because currently I'm being threatened with legal action sort of thing, So anyway, he on his own Facebook page, he wrote this whole thing and it was brilliantly put, and he's very, very eloquent in his wording and stuff. And he said, as part of being a coach, there's no denying that nobody is rewriting the swimming book. Nobody is reinventing the wheel.
Yes.
Everybody is influenced by everybody else. And when we put out our book, we produced a book in 2012 with Wiley & Sons. My acknowledgement section, they wanted me to cut it down because I was actually acknowledging almost every man and his dog who's helped me get to where I am. I want to give them credit. I want to give them reference for that. And the publishers were saying, I think that section's a bit too big. And Adam said, "Don't worry, I'll just put a short blurb. I'll just put in my own acknowledgements, which would just be a paragraph to allow Paul to get his stuff in there." And Steve had put this thing out on Facebook last week, and it was a thing saying, "Look, we all have these influences," and he says, "I'm a case coach, and a case coach is apparently copy and steal everything."
Yes.
And he was freely admitting this, but he wasn't admitting it in the context of, "I'm going to rip you off and steal all your stuff and claim it as my own."
Yes.
He was saying, I'm going to acknowledge, I'm going to deliver it within the session. I'm going to acknowledge where I've got it from.
Yes.
I'm going to give credit where credit's due. But there's absolutely no place in this world, in this coaching fraternity, for direct plagiarism, lifting your stuff and putting it out there. And, when he put that out there, I mean, he's somebody who I still, bow down to basically, because he's a great mentor. I call him Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
He used to take us to big triathlon events all around Europe and all around the world, actually. And would roll up there with these suitcases full of bikes and 45, 50 kilos worth of gear, only being allowed to take 20 on. And he'd just walk right up to the counter. He'd have a couple of lapel badges. He'd lean over the counter to the stewardess and just sort of start talking sweet nothings into her ear, saying, these guys, they're going to go to the Olympic Games. These guys, you can't charge them. Yes. They haven't got any money and stuff. And it never, ever fails. So it's almost like Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, just going like that and just being allowed straight through. So this guy, to have his backing last week was a major thing for me, yeah.
Awesome. So if we just come out of Swimsmooth for a minute, you've obviously coached numerous people to undertake big adventures like the solo to Rottnest, and I myself did it a couple of years ago, last year in 2016. And there are probably other people who take other big adventures on like the Ironman or the 70.3. What is it about these big things that all of a sudden people who may have done some sport at school, or like me, I played a bit of rugby and then didn't do a great deal for a while, and all of a sudden it all started to switch on. What is it within these people that just suddenly switch? You've seen lots of people. What is it that's going on, you reckon?
I don't know. I definitely think over the years we talk about growth areas and stuff, triathlon being one, open water swimming and stuff being one, but I think with any release of any product, let's call it an Apple iPhone or something like that, you know, you have the early adopters. And I think back in 1994, when I did my first triathlon, it was still a very, very niche sport, you know, and like everyone thought I was totally crazy. No one was talking about it at the pub. Certainly no one was actually signing the mate up to go and do this thing and stuff like that. And it just sort of bubbled along for a few years, and then it got into the Olympics, and then it started to get a little bit of recognition, which is what they were hoping for, talking specifically about triathlon here. And it just gained this little bit of momentum. So I think with that, I see two types of people. There's the people who are maybe, you know, thinking, okay, well, you know, I've maybe had my kids, or I'm getting a little bit, you know, I want to challenge myself. I want to do something a bit different. I don't want to be the guy who puts on loads of weight and sits down and drinks loads of beer every night.
Yes.
I want to do something that means something to me and hopefully can maybe influence some of my friends. So there's very much that side. And then there's also I think there's also a group of people who get sort of almost just caught up in it. And all of a sudden, without even really thinking about it, they're doing an Ironman triathlon. You know, it's like, so, you know, their mate's doing it. It's like, come on, do this. And you're like, yeah, okay then. Doing it.
I came here and I thought, oh yeah, being in a team to Rottnest would be a big thing. And then all of a sudden I'm being around people, and they've all got the solo number plates. And then I came and had my first one-to-one with you, and I think one of the first things you said to me was, yeah, you've got the capability of swimming the solo to Rottnest. And I had another friend who said, yeah, you know, if you just put the work in, you'll be able to do it.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden it's possible.
Totally.
But, yeah, what do you think actually goes on in there? Because I think you picked something interesting there with, you have the kids.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the kids grown up a bit. They're not like 3, 4, 5 years old. So they're more stable, you know.
That's right, yeah.
They go to the toilet by themselves.
Yeah.
And you're relieved of some of those duties, and you've got a little bit of space.
Yep.
And I think, for me, I wonder whether there's a bit of, you've been through that bit and you've given yourself away, and now all of a sudden you want a bit for yourself.
You want back, exactly
and
right.
I think also within the process, certainly I found on the process of swimming the solo to Rottnest, I found loads about myself that I put away, and this, that, and the other, and those endless hours.
It can be quite emotional.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a video which I captured leading beforehand, where I got a friend to record me, and I wonder whether I should make that episode 0.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Absolutely.
But all these stories were coming out of my mouth, and I was just like, wow. But yeah, I'm just interested whether you get to that sort of 35, 45 year point, and you're getting reflective, and you need to do something, whether it's capturing youth or do something meaningful or big, or a statement to yourself or to others.
That's right.
Do you see that?
Totally. I think you almost want to convince yourself that you're not over the hill.
Yes.
If you know what I mean. Because, you know, I mean, my kids are 8 and 5 now, and I definitely went through a period when they're very, very young, where, you know, you can't, not only can you not go out socially necessarily, especially if you haven't got any family where you live, but you just can't even go out for a run because somebody's got to be in the house and stuff like that. It's very hard to manage it, and both you and your partner are probably competing for time and stuff like that. But then when, like you say, when the kids get a little bit more established and stuff, you think, right, okay, I need a little bit back for me. You know, you look down at your less than a 6-pack, what do you got? Your muffin top, your barrel, your muffin top or what have you. And you look down at it and you think, yeah, I really need to get back into that, and to sort of almost convince yourself that you can still do that. And yeah, I think people have lots of different driving motivations and stuff. For me, for the English Channel, it was just a childhood dream doing that in 2011, and that was literally, it was going to be like Goodnight Vienna type of thing, because my daughter was born about a week or so after I swam the English Channel. Yeah. So I had to. The weather was really bad, and I just had to go. I thought, if I don't go now, my little girl Isla, as she's now called, is going to be born, and I'm going to have to come back. So you could sort of say, well, who is this monstrosity who leaves his pregnant wife, heavily pregnant wife, to go and swim the English Channel sort of thing? But, you know, we talked about it. This was something we were going to do, or I was going to do, and stuff. And, you know, obviously massive respect to Michelle for letting me do that. But there, you know, I'm stood in Dover, and my tide comes, and the weather comes through, and the tide blows out, and I can't get through on that tide of the window. I have to wait to the next one. The weather doesn't get any better, and it just came a point where I sort of say, I've just got to get in there and do it. Yeah. So for me, you know, at that point was very much I'm going to do this now, because I'm not going to get to do anything properly for another couple of years. And then when you come through that, then it's all about, probably 2013 for Manhattan was then me trying to sort of say, hey, I've still got it. I can still do this thing, And I mean, I haven't done a major event since that point, but just going back to what people go through, there is a new sport since 2007 which I've got myself involved in. It's called swim run. So it's the Swedish company who set it up are called Tillö, which means island to island. They set this up in 2007, and the idea was that they would actually race across this archipelago in Sweden. It was 65 kilometers of trail running and 10 Ks of open water swimming. Yeah. But the idea is that you run with your wetsuit on, and then you swim with your trainers on. So there's no transitions like triathlon, but you're actually partnered up with somebody. So you're hooked into a buddy, and you and him or you and her need to actually get across in as little unscathed way as you possibly can and get across the course. And I got I did the Manhattan swim in 2013, and then it was just last year, 2016, the opportunity came to do this, and it was on the Scilly Isles in the UK, which is a beautiful place and a place that I've never been to but always wanted to go. And a Swedish friend of mine who'd been on one of our coaches' courses said, I want to do this with you. And as it turns out, unfortunately, his daughter, his 8-year-old daughter, was suffering really quite severe leukemia. So we decided that we'd do it as a way for him to sort of, he was going through a really hard time. His family going through a mega hard time. We thought, well, how can we give a little bit of positivity in his life? And, for me to, sort of give me a challenge. I definitely operate better when I've got a goal in front of me, and to try and raise some money for his daughter and for the fundraising organization and stuff like that, and just do it together. And that was the first time in my entire sporting life I've ever done something which hasn't been ultra competitive.
Yes.
We set off. Neither of us were very fit. Neither of us were sure we were even going to be able to get around the course. I hadn't run properly for years and years and years. And we just set off with no pressure, no stress whatsoever. And it was a totally liberating experience.
Yes.
Because we went, I think there's about 120 teams, and we got to the end of the first run, 2 kilometers. And I think we were in about, looking back at the results, I think we were in like 60th position. But then you get into the water, and typically one of you swims at the front, and the strongest swimmer swims at the front, and the other swimmer swims behind, and you can tether them, so you can pull them on a rope.
Yes.
So I got Matty is his name. I said, right, I'll sit on the front, you sit behind, here's the rope. And suddenly we came out of the water, we'd gone from like top 60 to 13th or 14th after that first swim. So the first swim was as long as the first run.
Yes.
So that played to my strengths. And then we're out there and we're thinking, well, we haven't trained that hard for this event, and we're not really taking that seriously. But heck, we're nearly in the top 10 here. Let's just go and do it. And it was great. You're working together as a team. I've never been a team player as such. I've never been into rugby or soccer or any of those other sports. I've always done stuff solo. So for me, doing that, and that I guess that was one of my drivers, motivations, just doing something different, something a little bit lower key. And I see that day to day in our squad swimmers. People are coming along. What is their motivation? Well, a lot of them can't answer what their motivation is. They just say, I just like being fit and healthy. It's just my routine. It's my habit. It's habitual. I like to come down, and the coaching's all right. A lot of people say, the coaching's all right. It's not bad. You get me up in the morning. But they come for that social camaraderie of that shared experience of doing it with other people. And you see that all the time with things like social media now. People, this social like tribe, like a big growing tribe and stuff like that. But it's true in a squad situation as well. Yes. You go down for polar bear swim. Why do you go down for a polar bear swim? Well, it's invigorating to get into the cold water, but it's also nice to share a coffee with somebody afterwards and just chat about the experience of doing it.
Very grounded conversation.
Very grounded conversation.
You've been in the water.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I think, obviously people have all sorts of different drivers and stuff, and I take a lot of. I've always envied the swimmers that I coach.
Yes.
For the fact that they can just turn up. Sometimes without a goal at all. Yes. But still turn up for every single training session of every single week. And just swim. Without any sort of goals or competition or anything like that, not taking it too serious. And, if I reflect back on what I've done well and what I haven't done quite so well, I think physically as an athlete, as a triathlete and swimming and stuff like that, I'd always done pretty well. But mentally, that was always the hardest thing. I was always battling these inner demons of, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? And even when I did Manhattan, I certainly didn't expect to win that swim. And I set off, as I always do, too fast. Yes. But I had the insight to sort of feel that I had gone off too quick, and suddenly I was up there with the leaders and thinking, I shouldn't be here. These guys are way better than me. I'm going to back off. So I backed off, and then a couple of hours later, I actually caught them back up and then went into the lead. And it was through that conservation of not being too hard on myself and just sort of, going at being 80% perfect, as if you like, or 80% strong as opposed to 110%.
Paul Newsome ever play in the water?
Paul Newsome does play in the water, actually. Paul Newsome played in the water in Mallorca this year, actually. So I went over there for this amazing festival of swimming. It's called the Best Fest, and it's from.
Is that through being the Karma?
No, nothing to do with the Karma Resorts Rottnest Channel Swim, where they had me as the coach for that. But this is something entirely different. So for years, there's a 50-metre swimming pool, which almost looks exactly the same as Davies Road, in the middle of Mallorca, or in the middle of Mallorca, on the coast, set up by a couple of elite or former Olympian British swimmers who wanted to set up a 50-metre pool in an area where it's not too expensive to travel to, and certainly to build a 50-metre pool. I mean, imagine how much it costs to build a 50-metre pool in Perth. It's just ridiculous. But in Mallorca, it's possible. So they built this 50-metre pool, and the idea is that they have these teams travelling each year. It's like the Danish national team, German national team, British national team. They could go and have a warm weather camp, because we don't need warm weather camps here in Perth.
It's not sounding like play.
Say again, sorry?
This is not sounding like play.
Well, not yet. But so these guys came in, and over the last few years, they've sort of said, well, how can we add in, and this is pure pool swimming, how can we add in the element of open water? We've got all this fantastic Mediterranean water to come and swim in.
Yes.
What can we do? So they decided to set up what is essentially the Tour de France of open water swimming, where each day there's a new stage, and they sort of accumulate points for this leader at the end of the week. And I raced 8 times that week, I think it was, and covered about 45 kilometres. And I turned up.
I'm seeing your Instagram account.
Yeah, there you go. It looks pretty nice, doesn't it?
It was amazing.
And I turned up totally unfit, like genuinely unfit. But by the end of the week, I'd done 45 k's of swimming. I was pumping by the end, like properly. I'm feeling as good as I've ever felt, really, to be honest with you. And you say, well, that still doesn't sound much like playing, because that's racing and stuff. But in the morning, every single morning, I was literally in a hotel which was overlooking the Mediterranean. I'd walk down the steps, take 50 metres, jump into the Mediterranean. It's about 10 metres deep, crystal clear, about 22 degrees. And it was just amazing. Like all this, fish life and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there were I didn't have an agenda. I didn't have to swim I just made up a 800 metre loop, never timed myself, which I never normally do. I'm always, I've got to time myself. I'm going to be bleeper on and all that. And I just swam, and I was putting no effort into the strokes, and it just felt fantastic. So that became like my warm-up for the race for later on in the day, but I didn't really think of it as a warm-up. I actually thought of it as just enjoying
being present in the water.
Totally, yeah. And I'd like to say that I came back from that and I still do that every single day, but I don't.
Yeah.
But I would. Part of me still craves that feel. I was in the pool earlier on today thinking, I wonder if I can swim like I did in Mallorca. Like, as in, not worry about anybody else who's around me, and just get in there and just swim and just
be in it,
and just be in the water. And I mentioned earlier on this lady Megan. She's been inspirational to me, like with her attitude towards swimming and how she is as a person and stuff like that. I'll say to some swimmers, right, we're going to do these times here and you're going to hit these targets and stuff. And they'll go, I don't think I can do it. I'm not sure. And she just often give me we call it the Megan shrug. She just looks at me, shrugs her shoulders and go, okay, if you say I can do it, I can do it. So she just gets in and does it. And she doesn't think too much about it and stuff. And, I'd definitely be guilty of somebody who overthinks things, no question. And that can be a strength, of course, sort of thing. Yes. But certainly in the context of just enjoying and taking a step back and relaxing a little bit. I had that experience in Mallorca, and it was fantastic. So I'll be going back next year and be taking a group of people this time from Perth, that hopefully, and some of our swimmers to go and have this same experience. There's nothing better than doing a race you can walk to the race, you don't have to drive anyway, walk to the race, 10:30 a.m, do your swim, finish by lunch, have a siesta, go out for evening drinks, a mojito or something like that.
Happy days,
yeah. And it really did, and the community that I felt there was fantastic. So that, very much what it's all about, right?
Awesome. So last question for you.
Yeah.
So summing up Paul's life and the development of Swimsmooth and all of that, what are Paul's little nuggets to life that you've learned that you'd like to share for any of our listeners out there?
Well,
that's not specifically to swimming.
No, that's a really good point. I am a huge believer in hard work.
Yep.
In that, I would never classify myself as a talented swimmer. I was never the best swimmer out there, but I think some of the achievements that I've been able to achieve, and they're not the greatest achievements in the world, but achievements that I'm proud of, I've been born out of the fact that, I've recognised what I need to do and then worked really quite hard, and I can get very, very focused on something. And sometimes that can be a good thing. Sometimes people can find me a bit too blinkered in that focus and stuff. But I think hard work and perseverance certainly really trumps a lot. I wouldn't still be doing what I'm doing with Swimsmooth 13 years in if I wasn't passionate and hardworking and persevered with it and all those sort of things. So, it's about finding that goal. I've got many friends in the UK who they're earning lots and lots and lots of money. They went to the same university that I did and stuff like that. But none of them ever particularly appear to be that happy with what they're actually doing. They're not really passionate about what they do. And I've gone through a little bit of self-reflection recently with all this plagiarism stuff and other things that have been copied and stuff like that. And initially the response is one of anger, of like, how dare they do this? How dare they do that? And then somebody will say to me, well, you're obviously created something good here that people want to copy, and people, you're doing a good thing. People are validating you by copying that. And then you think to yourself, well, are they ripping me off? Is it that I'm worried about? I'm worried about putting food on the table and being able to live the way I want to live. And it's not that at all. It's just the biggest fear is not being able to coach. Right. It's not being, it's for something happening whereby that passion and that drive. I've often said to people, I'd love to be retired by the age of 45. I'm going to be a multi-millionaire by the time I'm 45. I'm 38 now. But now in reflection, I look back on that, I think I'd be absolutely miserable if I retired at 45. Because the thing that drives me and gets me up in the morning every day is, getting down there to the pool and actually working with the swimmers who I love working with, and then coming home, tapping away on the computer, answering emails or forum questions from people who are interested in what we do. I want a little bit more of that content. I want to know what we do. So I'm not sure if that's a golden nugget as such, but
definitely follow your passion.
Yeah, definitely follow your passion and what makes you happy. So focus, hard work. And I think those things are very, very important. My very good friend Chris last week, he said, "This is the statement you need to print out and put up on your computer now," because he knew I was going through a bit of a hard time. And it was a piece of Latin, and I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, but it's nil carburorum
illegitimae
or something like that. Yeah. I'll have to find it out for you, but it basically means don't let the... I'm not sure if you can let me swear here, sort of thing, but don't let the buggers get you down, basically, So
nil carborundum illegitimae.
That's right.
That's an A level in Latin.
Oh, is it? Oh, there we go. So I've got so it's something I don't. That's obviously not one of my strengths.
Don't let the illegitimate children.
Oh, is that what it is? Yeah, get you down or bring you down. So I think definitely be passionate about what you do. Find what it is. And I was listening to a podcast just yesterday about entrepreneurs, and they were talking about how the most successful entrepreneurs in the world always tend to have what is often seen by the public as a sidekick. So somebody who is there, like you have Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Yeah. Both of them built that company.
Yes.
But Steve Jobs is the guy that everybody thinks of. The front man, if you like.
Yeah.
Now, I was super lucky. I mentioned my business partner, Adam. I was super lucky back in 2008 that I met this guy online. It was 2007, actually. I came over here in 2008, and we just clicked. Yeah. And I was listening to this podcast yesterday, and it's talking about the pairings that you see in successful entrepreneurial businesses. And they have somebody who, the classic entrepreneur is somebody who is very visionary. They have all these ideas. And I have like a million different ideas buzzing around my head. I'm going to walk out this door right now. I've already got 20 things that I'm thinking, I just thought about that whilst we're doing this podcast. Fantastic. That's great.
Yes.
And I'd maybe go to the extent of writing it down, but I'd be very poor at actioning it.
Yes.
And so this podcast was all about, the visionary side, but then the yin and the yang would be what they call the integrator.
Yes.
And that is what Adam
makes it up.
Brilliant at. He's just, so without him, none of what I do with Swimsmooth, it would have fizzled out and done nothing. So without Adam on board, finding that match. So is that a little bit of advice and stuff like that?
Internally frustrated coach.
I would be an internally frustrated. Yeah, totally right.
Full of ideas, working for somebody else.
Working for somebody else, exactly right. But yeah, Adam came in there, made it a reality, and our partnership is just unbelievably rock solid, even to this day, sort of thing. You know, and we both serve our roles, and that's not to say that he doesn't have brilliant ideas as well. He's had some of the best ideas that we put out. Mr. Smooth, the animation, was his idea.
Yeah.
And you know, and I'll drive things and get things done. It's not like I'm just a procrastinator or anything like that. I will get things done as well. But we definitely have that sort of brilliant balanced relationship. And you know, so if anybody's listening to this and thinking, okay, well, you know, I've got this idea, I want to get out there, try and find somebody who can make it happen. Yeah, because that will really turn your business or whatever it is that you're doing, it will really turn it around. And you know, even in the context of swimming, it might just be trying to find a training partner who gives you a call and said, hey, why are you not down at the pool? You know, we organised to be down here 30 minutes ago, just to keep you sort of accountable for what you're doing. And you know, that journey then becomes a lot more exciting when you've got someone to share it with. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. You know, I've been and had a couple of video one-to-ones, and they've been a key part in my swimming journey, and I've been a consumer of your blog posts and stuff like that. But to get to know you today and hear your passion, it's been fantastic to listen to. It's actually been fantastic to watch.
Right. Okay.
Your whole body language and your eyes and everything just spark up. So yeah, it's living your passion. You actually embody that. Great. So thank you very much, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for inviting me on, Bryn.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.